Hey guys, tonight we're heading back to a quieter time though. Honestly, not that much quieter. Imagine a little house on the edge of Nazareth. The walls are made of sun-dried clay, and the smell of lentils and thyme wafts from the fire pit. You're there, sweeping the stone floor with a bunch of dried reeds tied together. A neighbor walks in, she always does uninvited, and with her the room seems to get just a little heavier. Your heart knows what your mouth won't say, something is off. Now, just a heads up, you probably wouldn't survive this era. No fans, no coffee, no online devotionals. Just you, your sandals, and the slow realization that peace can slip away from a person the same way olive oil soaks into warm bread. Quietly, invisibly. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop your city and your local time in the comments. I think it's beautiful how we can all gather like this from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sweep again. The straw bristles tick over the floor, and you sigh not from exhaustion, but from something harder to explain. When this person visits the oil jar seems to spill easier. The lamp feels dimmer. Your peace, however solid it was before, feels less anchored now. It's not always thunder and lightning when darkness enters a home. Sometimes it just walks in smiling and leaves you second-guessing your own joy. You begin to notice this more often. After they leave you clean again, not because things are dirty, but because the space feels wrong. That unspoken tension still hangs in the corners. You try to pray, but your thoughts won't hold still. It's like something spiritual was stirred, and not in a holy way. Scripture tells us in John 10:10, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." And sometimes theft doesn't look like a masked bandit. It looks like a close friend who always leaves you just a bit more empty than when they arrived. In the biblical era, homes were often small shared spaces. Guests would sit low to the ground on mats dipping into communal bowls, and it was considered deeply shameful to reject someone. Hospitality was sacred. Refusing someone, especially a family member, could ignite a conflict that outlived your last batch of goat cheese, which makes it even harder when that someone is the source of your unrest. You laugh to yourself because, let's be honest, even in modern times declining an invite with, "Sorry, your presence disturbs my spiritual peace," wouldn't go over too well. Still, discernment begins as a whisper. That feeling that your prayer life has gone quiet. Your rest doesn't reach as deep. Your smile is slower to rise. You notice it in the way they always have a crisis but never seem interested in yours. Or how they ask for prayer but never join you in it. Or maybe they do pray but it's loud showy, and somehow leaves you feeling more anxious than covered. There's an old scroll fragment that historians still argue about. Some believe it describes a practice where visiting guests were offered a single fig from the family's tree. If the fig was bitter, it was a quiet sign that the guest was not welcomed. Others claim it's just metaphorical, a spiritual fig, so to speak. Either way, you're starting to taste something bitter. You set your broom aside. The fire flickers and the room is quiet. And you remember something your grandmother used to say in the language of dry humor. Some people bring a breeze when they leave. Others bring a blessing. You're starting to realize which kind of person this is. You think of Jesus, how even in a crowd, peace followed him like a shadow. And when people touched his robe, they were healed. They didn't leave more tired. But this one person, you don't even need to touch their garment. Just their presence is enough to pull at your spirit, fray your focus, and make you doubt the light you just spent all morning with in prayer. And here's where it gets tender. Because sometimes that person is close. Very close. A spouse. A sibling. Someone you've known since before you knew the Bible verse you now whisper at night. Someone who's never outright cruel, but they are undeniably, consistently peaceless. You love them. You do. And that's what makes this so hard. But you're learning maybe tonight that love and access are two different things. You can love someone and still guard the garden God placed in your soul. Because demons, real ones, don't always knock down your front door. Sometimes they just show up in the form of someone who never brings peace when they visit. That's not accusation, it's recognition. And in recognizing, you begin to reclaim. You sit back, your fingers relax. Your breath slows, and you feel it for the first time in a while, your peace. Still yours, still sacred, still strong even in the presence of memory. Tomorrow, maybe you'll see them again. Maybe not. But tonight, you're learning to name the pattern and watch your spirit respond with a quiet strength. You whisper a verse to yourself. Maybe it's one you memorized as a child, or one that found you on a hard night. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. Isaiah 26:3. You smile. The lamp oil burns soft and low. And you rest in the knowledge that you are no longer confused about where your peace went. You know now it was quietly stolen. But you're taking it back. You wake up the next morning, and the birds are already singing their slightly off-key tunes, just as they always do outside the window carved into the wall. You stretch walk to the clay basin, and splash your face with cool water drawn from the well the night before. But something lingers. Not the night's dreams, not even the humidity. It's that ache behind your ribs, like your heart remembers something your mind hasn't fully processed yet. And then you think of them, the person who always seems to light a spark under your skin, but not the comforting kind. The kind that makes you want to snap back, slam a door, or roll your eyes so hard you strain something. You know exactly who I'm talking about. They don't even have to raise their voice. A single sigh, an offhand remark, the way they pretend not to hear your boundaries. It pulls something fierce out of you. The version of you that you thought was long gone. The version you laid down at the altar years ago. You stir lentils in the pot with a flat wooden spoon, thinking back on what they said last time. You always overreact. Or maybe, wow, someone's sensitive. Or, the worst of them all, I was just kidding. And just like that, your spirit tightens again. You didn't want to react. You really didn't. But they knew what to say. What expression to wear. Which wound to poke at until something sharp came out of you. Ephesians 4:26 whispers in your spirit. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry. But how are you supposed to sleep peacefully when your mind is replaying the argument like a bad lute solo? Over and over, word for word, face for face. Back in the Bible era, arguments were often settled at the city gate. Elders and scribes would sit on stone benches listening patiently, judging wisely, and probably sipping goat milk if we're honest. Public disputes were handled like community theater. But you get no audience, no judgment, no wisdom, just your emotions a wooden spoon and a prayer that doesn't always feel loud enough. There's a curious record from the Talmud, which yes, we know isn't the Bible, but it's fascinating. It mentions the belief that demons would whisper into the ears of those who fell asleep angry. Historians still debate whether this was metaphorical or just classic spiritual drama, but the idea has weight that unresolved wrath opens the door to influence, not from above, but from below. And that might be exactly what this person is doing knowingly or not. They bait you into reacting, then step back and point at your mess. Gentle sarcasm moment. Isn't it amazing how they always stay calm, but somehow you're the one apologizing for yelling while they're sipping tea, like a Pharisee on vacation? You try to walk it back later. Maybe you text an apology. Maybe you cry in the donkey shed. Hey, it's quiet in there. But the shame still lingers. Because you don't want to be reactive. You want to be a woman of peace. A woman of prayer. A woman who holds her tongue and waits on the Lord. But they seem to reach past your armor and push the exact button labeled "Lose Composure Now." And here's where it gets spiritual. Because demons don't always need to possess someone, they just need to influence. And when that influence leads you away from your God-given calm, that's not just a personality clash. That's spiritual warfare. You remember Jesus again, how they provoked him constantly, yet he answered with such grace, or silence. He didn't return fire with fire. He stood, or knelt, or simply withdrew. You want to do the same, but you also feel like screaming into a basket of laundry. It's okay. Sanctification is a journey, not a sprint. The clay walls of your home feel closer today. The sun peeks through the olive branches outside. And you know the truth, this person's presence makes you someone you're not proud of. Maybe it's time to see that not as a flaw in you, but as a sign. A sign that this person doesn't bring out your light because they're not standing in it with you. You start to breathe slower, not because the emotions are gone, but because they're seen, named. You recall Proverbs 15:1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. And you smile. Not because you've mastered it, but because you finally see the pattern. One quirky detail from the Dead Sea region. Some ancient homes had a hidden upper corner where women could sit alone to pray or cry. A private sanctuary. No one was supposed to disturb it. Maybe you don't have a corner like that, but your prayer closet, your car, or even your kitchen at 10 p.m. can be that sacred space. You are allowed to retreat from provocations. You are allowed to guard your tone. You are allowed to say nothing. And here's something beautiful you may need to remember. Jesus never lost composure because he knew who he was. You, dear one, are learning that too. So the next time they bait you, maybe you won't bite. Maybe you'll breathe. Maybe you'll walk away. Maybe you'll whisper, "Not today, Satan," and mean it with everything inside you. And if you do slip up, if you shout or snap or say something that makes you want to hide under a table, grace is still yours. Forgiveness is still waiting. Peace is still within reach. Because the goal isn't perfection. The goal is returning to peace faster than before. You sit by the fire later that evening, the glow of the coals reflecting on the clay walls like a flickering memory. It's quiet outside now, too quiet almost. and your thoughts begin to turn slow and looping like the grinding stone you use for barley. That person, yes, the same one, has just left again. And your mind is full of riddles, not big ones like who wrote Hebrews, though scholars still love that one, but smaller ones, messier ones. Did I say something wrong? Did I misremember that moment? Wait, did that really happen like I thought it did? You begin to doubt yourself, not because you're forgetful, not because you're dramatic, but because the person you're dealing with knows how to twist the truth just enough to confuse you. This is where the deception gets dangerous, because they don't lie outright. No, they use implication. They rearrange details. They suggest things in tones heavy with suggestion. And you start questioning your own memory, your own logic, your own spirit. Sound familiar? It should. The serpent in Genesis 3:1 asked, "Did God really say?" Just a whisper, a twist, an invitation to doubt what had once been certain. That ancient trick is alive and well. You see it when someone tells you you're overthinking right after they contradict something you know they said, or when they repeat a conversation you clearly remember, but they change the ending. And suddenly you feel lost in your own life. It's not just frustrating, it's spiritually disorienting. In the time of Jesus, scrolls were meticulously copied by hand. One single letter changed the meaning of a word. That's why scribes were revered not just for their knowledge, but for their integrity. Now imagine someone deliberately changing just a single word of your story. That's what it feels like. And it's not just memory. They twist your beliefs too. Maybe not with sermons or doctrine, but with sarcasm. Like, "Oh, you're still doing that whole praying before decisions thing," or "Isn't it exhausting, always trying to be good?" Maybe even, "You don't really believe God cares about that, do you?" It's casual. But it lands. You laugh it off, sort of. But later, the sting remains. You're not shaken because their opinion holds weight. You're shaken because the enemy knows exactly how to slip poison into the places you're still healing. And you wonder, are they being influenced or are they just being themselves? It's hard to say, but here's what's easier noticing the pattern. You open up about something sacred, your healing journey, your convictions, your latest prayer, and somehow it always ends with you feeling small. That's not God. That's not truth. That's manipulation, and at its root, it's deception, one of the enemy's oldest tools. Here's where we take a soft detour into biblical history, something not often mentioned in church, but fascinating. Some ancient Jewish families would keep a small vessel of honey hidden in their home, not for eating, but to anoint the tongue of a newborn as a symbolic blessing. May your words be sweet and true. Now, whether that's fully historical or partially poetic, scholars still debate. But the heart of it resonates. Words carry power. And when someone repeatedly speaks in a way that makes you feel unsure, unsafe, or unstable, it's not just their tone. It's their spirit showing. There's a moment in the Gospels where Jesus says in John 8:44, "When the devil lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies." That verse, when whispered into the middle of emotional gaslighting, can feel like a life raft, because it reminds you you're not crazy, you're not confused, you're not imagining it. You're under attack, but it's spiritual. And spiritual attacks often come cloaked in emotional exchanges. You brush crumbs off your lap stand slowly, and walk outside into the cool night air. The stars above are ancient, older than your worries, and yet you feel God's presence tonight more than ever. Because naming the lie brings back the truth. Here's a little friendly humor to lighten things. If this person were any slipperier, you'd need olive oil just to hold a conversation. Or, how about this? You've had clearer communication with your donkey, and he doesn't even speak. You smile. Because laughter, when it returns after confusion, feels like clarity with sparkles. You're learning something priceless. Your God-given discernment is a spiritual compass. When someone consistently leaves you confused, second-guessing yourself, or doubting God's peace, it's not just personality differences. It's a sign, a holy one. You don't need to confront them. Not yet. You don't need to make a grand exit. What you need is awareness. From awareness comes wisdom. From wisdom, peace. And from peace, clarity. You whisper a prayer, nothing fancy, just, Lord, help me to recognize the truth. And give me courage to hold on to it. And maybe that's all you need for now. Because in a world full of twisted words, half-truths, and shadows disguised as friends, you're learning to see. And once you see clearly, you never go back to blindness. You knead the dough slowly, rhythmically, your fingers moving in quiet circles like they've done 1,000 times. Outside, the chickens squabble in their ridiculous way, and a shepherd's song floats in from the hills. For a moment, it's peaceful until a thought settles in your mind like smoke through a cracked window. Why does everyone else love them? But you feel like you're unraveling. You've watched it again and again. They walk into a room and the energy shifts. Not just for you, but for everyone else, it shifts upward. People smile. People lean in. Laughter spreads like honey. They're charming. They're helpful. They're such a joy to be around. But when the crowd is gone and it's just the two of you, your shoulders tense. Your spirit folds in. And when you try to explain it to someone, anyone, they don't get it. She's so sweet. He's always been there for me. I can't imagine them ever hurting anyone. You feel like the only one who sees the shadow behind the smile. And that makes you feel isolated. Even a little guilty. Could I be wrong? Am I just jealous? Maybe I'm being dramatic. But no, you know what you felt. And it wasn't peace. In Matthew 7:15, Jesus warns us, watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. Wolves don't always growl. Sometimes they bake bread. Sometimes they compliment your earrings. Sometimes they do everything right in public. It's in private where the mask slips. Back in the days of King Herod, people wore cloaks that signified social standing. The heavier the fabric, the more respect you'd get. Never mind if you were generous, honest, or kind. What mattered was how convincing your image was. Not much has changed, huh? There's a scroll fragment from Qumran that mentions community members being warned about smooth talkers with quick hands and crooked hearts. Historians debate whether this refers to traveling merchants or something more metaphorical. But either way, the idea has stood for millennia. Not everyone who shines in public glows in private. And this person in your life, they are dazzling in public. But when it's just you, the light goes out. You can't quite explain what happens. Maybe they speak in a way that makes you question your worth. Maybe their silence is heavy and punishing. Maybe it's the way they forget your birthday, But remember exactly what insult will sting. The truth is, demons are excellent actors. They don't knock on your door with horns and a pitchfork. They show up as the person who volunteers, bakes casseroles, and gives great advice that leaves you spiritually confused. And they don't need the whole world to be fooled. They just need you to keep doubting your instincts. But you're not crazy. You're not imagining it. You're discerning it. There's a quiet form of warfare that happens when charm is weaponized. When someone can light up a room while dimming your spirit, you're not wrong to notice. You're wise. And wisdom, for what it's worth, rarely gets applauded in the moment. You stare into the rising dough, wondering how something so soft can grow strong under pressure. Kind of like you. Because the more they dazzle others, the more God strengthens your internal compass. The Holy Spirit doesn't need applause to speak truth. And He's been nudging you for a while now. Another whisper of humor here. If this person were any more beloved by your social circle, they'd get a sandal endorsement deal. Or they're so charming you half expect them to turn water into wine at dinner. Though, unlike Jesus, their miracles usually involve confusion and exhaustion. You smile, because sometimes humor is a holy balm. You're starting to understand something deep tonight. Public admiration is not proof of private integrity, and the fact that you feel drained, small, or anxious after time with them, that is a spiritual sign. Not a flaw, not a weakness, a sign. You whisper to God, "Help me trust what you've shown me even if no one else sees it yet." Because one day, maybe others will. But even if they never do, you've seen the fruit. And it's not good fruit. Jesus said, "By their fruit you will recognize them." Not by their followers, not by their niceness, by their fruit. So you begin to pull back, not with cruelty, but with clarity. You don't share your heart as freely. You don't accept every invitation. You don't ignore the way your stomach tightens when they text you. And guess what? That's not pettiness. That's protection. Because your soul is not a stage. It is a sanctuary. And no matter how charming someone is, they don't get to dim the lamp that God placed inside you. You're walking a narrow path now, just outside the village. The dust clings to the hem of your robe, the way certain memories cling to your spirit. It's quiet out here. The kind of quiet that lets your thoughts breathe. You're thinking about them again. Not out of longing, not out of love, but from the ache of aftermath. Because they're gone. Just gone. No apology. No closure. No hope you're okay. And somehow that silence feels louder than any argument ever did. This person, once so loud in your life, has disappeared completely since things fell apart. And deep down, you know why. They finished what they came to do. You're not being dramatic. You're being honest. They entered your life, stirred confusion, sparked chaos, drained joy, pulled you from prayer. And once you were cracked enough to sit in the dark, they vanished. It's hard to admit, but it's biblical. In 2 Timothy 3:5, Paul warns of people who have a form of godliness but deny its power, have nothing to do with them. That form can be convincing, but when their power fades, when they can no longer control, wound, or twist, you'll find yourself alone again. And it hurts. But strangely, it also brings peace. Because you realize you were never crazy, never overreacting, never spiritually paranoid. You were just in a fight your friends didn't see. And now the opponent has moved on. In ancient Galilee, it was common practice to shake the dust off your sandals when leaving a place that rejected peace. Some scholars argue this was symbolic. Others say it was practical, even hygienic. But either way, it sent a message. What tried to cling to me doesn't get to follow me. Tonight, you're doing just that. Shaking off the dust. Not just of their absence, but of everything they left behind: the confusion, the guilt, the spiritual bruises that took weeks to recognize. They always had a hidden agenda, didn't they? Never outright cruelty, just enough withholding, enough inconsistency to keep you feeling one step away from being enough. They smiled while you unraveled, and when the unraveling was complete, they disappeared. You're not bitter. You're just aware now. That's the difference. You begin to laugh a little under your breath softly, like a secret between you and God. Because, wow, the silence now. It's not loneliness. It's peace returning to its rightful place. You whisper again, just to steady yourself, I am not what they left behind. I am who God stayed with. And suddenly you feel the wind shift. Your prayers once tangled feel steady. Your mind once muddied feels clearer. Your soul once unsure feels sheltered. Because when a demon finishes their assignment, they leave. But the Holy Spirit, He remains. And He's here now. You turn toward home, the sky turning that honey wine color as the sun dips low. The path under your feet feels lighter. Or maybe you're lighter. Because nothing is more weightless than someone who's just released what was never theirs to carry. You reach the gate of your little home and pause. Not to look back, but to breathe. This is what healing sounds like. And it's not silence. It's the hush of peace reclaiming your name. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not foolish for loving. You are not weak for hurting. You are still here, still praying, still praising, still becoming. And the one who left, let them stay gone. Your table is reserved for those who bless, not break, who stay, not sneak, who speak life, not confusion. Let that be your new boundary. And now, dear heart, let's rest. The night has fully arrived, and the oil lamp flickers just once before settling into a steady flame. The breeze outside hums like a lullaby, rustling the fig leaves brushing gently against the window. Your bed, woven with linen, and the scent of cedar calls to you softly. You lie down, not with fear, not with bitterness, but with peace. Because tonight you did the work. You looked closely at a presence that had long confused your soul. You named it. You blessed your own clarity, and you allowed yourself to release what wasn't sent by God. The enemy thrives in chaos. But you, beloved, are wrapped in calm now. The shepherd who knows your name is near, and he never leaves when you're hurting. He draws closer. Let his whispers wrap around your heart like warm wool. Let his truth dry the ache of old wounds. Let his love become the sound you fall asleep to. Breathe deeply. Inhale grace. Exhale fear. Again, you are covered. You are safe. You are enough because He is. The stars above are older than betrayal, but not older than the love God has for you. So, sleep, daughter of peace. He is watching over you.